You are listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast with Maggie Green, episode number 332.
Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast, a podcast that celebrates cookbook readers, buyers, collectors, writers, and clubs. And now your host, cookbook author, culinary dietitian, and cookbook writing coach, Maggie Green.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. How's everybody doing today? I have to laugh because I am here in my cookbook bunker all by myself, as I normally am, doing my work. And I started talking and recording this podcast, and my cat, Virgil, came charging down the steps and jumped up on the desk. I think he thought I was down here with somebody that could pet him, but I'm not. And if you hear him in the microphone, it's because he's literally like sitting right next to me, kind of snorting and purring. So welcome, Virgil, to the podcast also. How's everybody doing? It is currently the end of the week of January the 6th, and we're having a lot of snow here in Kentucky, cold weather, and it's winter time, and I love it. We enjoyed a really quiet weekend, spending time at home, doing some shoveling and indoor things like reading and watching basketball. And isn't it funny when you want to stay home versus when you have to stay home? When there's snow falling and all the roads are covered with ice and snow, there's really not a lot of options. And I think it's kind of fascinating to look at the way we think about that versus choosing to stay home on a day when we could go out and go somewhere. So I'm not really sure that has anything to do with what I'm going to talk about today, but just something that has been on my mind. So today's podcast is called Why Failure Hurts. And I've been thinking a lot about this and wanted to share with you a story. As many of you know, I self-published my Christmas cookie baking guide just this past November. This was my 5th published cookbook and my first self-publishing venture. In 2023, I decided I wanted to self-publish a book, and the best way for me to learn how to do something is to teach it. So I offered a beta course of cookbooks on KDP, and I said, I'm going to learn how to self-publish a cookbook. If you want to learn with me, join this program, and we're going to work together for 12 weeks, and we're going to go step by step through the publishing process. But you need to have about 25 recipes ready to publish. This wasn't necessarily a recipe writing course. It was a course all about publishing. So people joined the course. We dove in, and the first thing we do in the course is we go through how to publish a low content book, and then we go through the process of publishing a high content or a recipe book. And my book was the Christmas cookie cookbook. So I wrote it in 2023, and I tested it in December of 2023 during the Christmas season last year. So it's kind of easy for me to sit here and talk all about the book being published and how it's the fruit of the work I do every year as a Christmas cookie baker and how I manage my time to write and publish the book. And that's all true. But I want to tell you what happened after December of 2023, when I had completed the testing. I had all the notes in January of this past year, but I sat on the updates for 7 months. And I did not do the work to update the recipes in the book until August. And because I did that, it took all of September and October to go through the proofing stage, order proofs, make updates, order proofs, make updates. I had trouble with the spine text on the book until I ultimately was able to publish it only 4 weeks before Christmas this past year. So why am I telling you all this? The reason is I had this thought this morning, and I want you all to know something. If you are publishing now, or working on a cookbook project now, or you're working on a big project now, maybe could be anything from starting a business to managing a shift in going from being an active mom perhaps to an empty nester. There's something big going on in your life right now, and you're working on goal. Maybe it's even weight loss. Maybe it's more health. Maybe it's exercising. Maybe it's writing more, whatever it is. And you, or if you've ever attempted anything before and you quit. So I'm talking to anybody that's doing something now that kind of feels like a big project, or they've done something before, but you quit. I want you to know that if you feel like you're failing, this is not your fault. Because you're not failing. And you're not to blame for feeling like you're failing. And you're not to blame for having this feeling of failure. Because the secret to this is to realize is that the feeling of failure is a story we tell ourselves about ourselves, and it doesn't come from anything, doesn't come from the failure, it just comes from what we're thinking, and per se, it really comes from the fact that we're growing and we're changing, and whatever we are trying to do is requiring us to think in a new way and to do things that are different than we're used to doing. But what often happens is when we feel like we're failing and we personalize it and we think it's our fault and we don't like that feeling, we numb ourselves with a lot of fun things so we don't have to feel the growth, like shopping, alcohol, excessive internet use, procrastination, which is what I did. Procrastination is a form of avoiding things because you don't want to feel a certain way, like you feel like you're failing. You don't want to feel that way, so you put things off. Maybe it's irritability, blaming other people for how you're feeling. We numb ourselves with these things, or we just run from the growth. We run from the feeling and we quit. But as your cookbook coach, I want you to imagine that I am your cookbook coach. I'm here to encourage you to embrace this feeling, to stay in the arena because it is not failure. And feeling like a failure is a story, but I want you to change it to say, if you're feeling this way, it's because you truly are growing and changing into someone who, if you keep going, is going to succeed at your project, which is maybe writing a cookbook and getting it published. So back when I sat on those updates for 7 months and I didn't do the work to update the recipes until August, and then I had to proof the book and I didn't get it out until November, I just was like, Maggie, what in the world have you been doing? Why did you do this? For me, it was procrastination. My discomfort came from self-publishing. It's a self-revelation of me, a self-revelation of a process that I love, a self-revelation of pictures that I took, a self-revelation of the writing, something that I care about and hold near and dear to my heart. I was exposing that to the world, and that doesn't always feel good, but it doesn't mean that I'm a failure or that I was failing. It's because I was avoiding the growth that comes from putting myself out there and staying in the arena. And Theodore Roosevelt is the person that talked about this and talked about it a lot in terms of the quote for staying in the arena. So I want to wind up this episode today by sharing this quote with you and also letting you know, if you want to face your failures full on with me and cast all blame to the wind, I'd love for you to join me for the next group of cookbooks on KDP, where you're going to have a book of recipes published by Mother's Day. Mother's Day is a huge time for cookbook publishing. And you can go to the wait list, which is www.cookbookwritersacademy.com/KDP. The link is below in the show notes. Join the wait list. You'll receive notice about when the doors open, because I'm going to teach you how to fail and keep going and how to feel this pain of growth and keep going And we're going to publish your recipes in a book on Amazon in just about 12 weeks. So here's the full quote. Theodore Roosevelt said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms and great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither knew victory nor defeat." So that is it for today's episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. This is your host, Maggie Green, and until next time, I hope you have a great day and keep loving yourself and your cookbooks.
Thanks for listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast. You can find out more information at www.cookbooklove.co.